Hello, hello. Long time since last episode. No, I was busy watching anime. If you've ever seen Tokyo Ghoul, don't watch it. 0 out of 10. Worst anime I've ever come across. Watch something better like Vinland Saga or that workout anime instead. I can recommend those. Don't really had any script for this video. I just had a bunch of ideas I needed to get off my head. My head has been boiling with energy and crazy ideas for the last few weeks and been brewing up there, and I needed to ejaculate some of these into your consciousness. So you probably come across this liberal argument sometimes where it's like, oh, this poor black kid has grown up in a hard neighborhood and he can't do anything about it than become a gang member and commit crime because of the environment that he's grown up in. And another favorite of mine, which is, taking the same logic to an even more absurd example, is when, for example, in Sweden, they have these immigration ghettos, and then they, there's certain areas of Sweden, parts of town that are just full of immigrants, and for some reason, we have our best minds on the case, but we still haven't cracked why. But for some reason, these same areas turn into dens of violent crime and gang activity. So I've heard this liberal argument that it's the evil racist Swedes putting them in the bad part of town, right? So that they can't help but commit crime. So it's like a magic soil, it's like a ghost. There's a curse on that part of town, which makes people who live there develop violent tendencies, which you cannot help yourself. It's like environmental factors taken to the extreme. I do believe that whether or not liberals have a soul is a question up to theologians more intelligent than myself, but they certainly do not act in a manner that makes you think that they think other peoples have souls and free will, because it's never about free will with objects, with people. They always assume that you cannot teach a man to be good. You cannot put arguments in him, a belief system in him to make him better. You can only better him through an environment. You increase his income. You put him on magic soil that is good, where the rich white people live. Probably that's why they're rich. Maybe that's also why they're white. That's another theory. But yeah, it's like that's why liberals hate people who want to teach people, how to live good lives. They hate people who want to teach Christianity to the masses, but they can't put people in boiling oil because that's an environment. That's what they understand. But yeah, I was toying with that idea, and people, deride this idea online as, oh, magic soil, am I right, guys? Haha. And I was thinking that's pretty funny. But what if it's true? Ever think of that one? So here's my idea. If you have ever gone to Balkan YouTube comment section and you look at the comments and, any country is named from the Balkans, say Macedonia, and then, you look in the comments, you're guaranteed to find Macedonia number one, Macedonia best. And then from nowhere, like nobody asked, but the Greeks come in, and there's like, Monkedonia, fuck you, your country suck, invented, Slavic imposters, we kill you, you suck. Doesn't matter, it can be like a guy from Kosovo who goes, Kosovo number one, Kosovo best. And then, a Bulgar replies to him. Mind you, Kosovo and Bulgaria share no border. They share no history. They just both happen to exist, on the Balkans, and then this Bulgar will come and talk down to him like, fuck you, fuck Kosovo, Kosovo sucks, Bulgaria number one, Bulgarians, we were first humans. This is true Balkan spirit, right? So I was very young when I first learned about Balkan history, and when Ottoman Empire collapsed, they immediately, all the new nations, Balkan nations that had become independent, declare war on each other. They start killing each other, and for no good reason, no good explanation. And me being very young, reading about this, I think, there must be some sort of socio-economic factors behind this that cause all these wars, all this strife that I don't fully understand yet. But I was dumb then, and I know better now that it is magic soil on Balkans that make people like this. And over a long enough time period, any peoples who live on that soil will develop these tendencies where they just must mass genocide all people who are even slightly different. Probably, at the expense of IQ points. I certainly lost a few reading through Balkan comments as research for this video, but they must constantly kill and fight and genocide, and it is in their blood. It's like that with when American funding to prop up Titov's Yugoslav Republic ended and Yugoslavia collapsed. They reverted to their natural state because they were no longer physically restrained through a strong political apparatus strong enough to do so. That they, when their energies were released, they went immediately back to killing each other. And this didn't end until again foreign power come in and impose this alien peace upon the Balkans. And I do believe that this is personal theory, that the true inheritors of Rome, when you think only in ethnicity, is not the Italians. Those are descendants of the slave peoples who the Romans conquered from all over Europe, the weakest and most servile and subservient peoples were all taken to Italy by the Romans, who mass bred the new mongrelized race known as the Italians, and the true Romans who are Illyrians, aka Croats, who definitely show the same martial and expansionist will that the Romans had. And it is only through Western imperialism and Western control over the area of the Balkans that we are not stopping but only delaying the inevitable conquest of Greater Croatia over all of Balkans, because their nature means that only one can come out on top. It is a great King of the Hill battle, probably greatest in world history, that we have put on pause. And it's very saddening to me because it would be probably epic fight. This is Fukuyama is trying to physically hold back progress of history just so he can feel like he is right. It's not ended, this history, it's only put on pause, and neoliberalism is holding the TV remote. Just set my people free, says Croatia, hungry for blood. But that was a long tangent. Real point here was that the soil is obviously greatest explanation for why people are like this. Another argument, what really sealed the deal for me, why I started to believe this, was because when I saw Americans devolve into this mongrelized race that, we make the funny memes on the internet, haha, El Goblino, haha, 56%, the memes. And then you see this person like out of Lovecraft story or ancient mythos, with the pig nose and the big ears and the bug eyes and the fat flabby misconstrued body proportions, and he says, "I'm an American," and then you see, wow, what a wretched creature, children, shield your eyes. And then what you always find with these people is that they show you 23andMe, and yes, now we have scientific proof that it is in fact 100% European genotype. So this makes me think that one of the many reasons why science cannot teach us about the world, at least not the stuff that's worth knowing. So I was thinking there must be something else going on. Anglos, the accursed race, which the specter which always haunts Europe, Anglos, they are too different. They are too much of an anomaly to be explained with pure genetics. People like that are so genetically similar to Europeans cannot be that different, only because the genetic difference is so little. It's insignificant. But the real difference, what you see, is they live on an island, and maybe this island, magic soil, creates the Anglo. Just as what I have come to believe is that America has its soil, which created the Sioux warrior, the Cherokee, and all the other noble, savage warrior races. I say noble because they had no qualms about killing their enemies, not in any way the way which delusional liberals misuse the term noble savage, but real noble savage who more like Bronze Age hero kills enemies and takes land and wife of enemy who is destroyed. Real killers, much like the conquistadors who in turn killed them, was also noble savage. He just had more metal breastplates and sword and gun. Does not make him less of a noble savage. Either way, the nature of America creates a man that yearns for death. Perhaps it is like a ghost that inhibits the land, that drives quote-unquote evolution in a certain direction. Evolution, macroevolution at least, is to me completely bogus. There is not enough evidence for any sort of mutations. There is not enough room for random mutation in the time that has passed for all of the complexities to evolve, which has. For example, good example, Bronze Age Pervert takes up in his book, The Bronze Age Mindset. He says, mouse in the Alps who has to store food for winter. The mouse puts away the food, and it puts poison herbs with the food, and it needs to put just right amount to keep the food fresh over winter. Too much and it will poison the food and the mouse will die. Too little and the food will spoil and the mouse will die. There is no way, because this mouse cannot be taught this by its parents, like we humans teach intelligently ideas from one another. It must be inborn to the mouse, so it doesn't understand it. It only does it through the magic of intuition. Yes, and then how does it know it? Because very dumbass once told me, when I told him this story, huge idiot, he said, oh well, obviously they did it wrong and they kept dying, and then the one who got it right had children, and then those children intuitively knew it, and that's how it stuck. And this is of course an idiot's view of evolution, and that's why perhaps only idiots can believe in evolution in this way. But the truth is that just because your parents intuitively got a question right by guessing randomly doesn't mean that you intuitively will guess right the same way. This has to do with something that is beyond our understanding. It's just as muscle memory cannot be inherited. This sort of intelligence cannot be inherited. There must be, more and more I learn of this, the more I am convinced that there is a sort of spirit which we cannot fully understand that is guiding evolution in a certain direction. There is some sort of intelligent design behind everything that changes, and it changes in a definite direction, just as the Americans are becoming more savage and less, as we would call them, civilized and European in a sense, but their genetics are not changing. This is purely adaptation, the spirit that is moving them. I believe that just as the Aztecs were probably formed by the native spirit of the land that yearned for death and blood of many people, and so it created this hunger for this race that always thirsted for the blood of its enemies. So you too can see in Mexico, highest murder rate on the planet probably. There's constant death, and these are people who have only succumbed to the native spirit of the land, the magic soil, if you will. So it's I do believe that in a way, in a few generations, we will see Americans becoming more and more savage and going back in development. Sort of, that is why you see American women being so turned on by murderous men, dangerous men, because they can feel like, this man will bear me children of fierce Sioux warrior who will scalp his enemies and build great totem pole of iPhones. And it's like a mating ritual in America is taking drugs that probably puts you in connection with the spirit world while you dance in a trance to this awful music on accursed Indian burial ground. And this is like a Lovecraftian nightmare, honestly. Like, I would rather be a piss poor man here in Finland than ever be a moderately wealthy and successful man in America, because it is such an accursed existence to me. I think Jung really hit the nail on the head when Jung, the guy who wrote those books that made Jordan B. Peterson famous by just misrepresenting and quoting all the time. Jung was in America one time, and he was being showed the country, and he is sitting in passenger seat as his guide is driving him down road, and he sees all these Native Americans in line outside the factory, and he points, look at all those natives. That's they seem so worn down and so sad. And then his driver looks at him confused and says, No, those are native. I don't think there's a drop of Indian in them. Those are Anglos and Irish and German and French. And Jung had a hard time believing this, but it's true. It's true. What he saw was really, because Jung had this sort of ability to see into. He was never a man that was too captivated by people's outsides. He could always see a bit more into a man. And what he saw was the inside, right? He saw their spirits being transformed into the Native American spirit. It was the magic soil that had already started its work. Some say corruption, others say improvement. I take no stance on this question. But yes, it is definitely happening all around us. You can see this in settlers of New Zealand and Australia as well. You can see that there is a sort of some Anglo supremacists like to say a degradation in the native stock, but there will only take a few more generations. My guess is 3 tops, and you will have the Australians drinking petrol with the Aboriginals, it being completely impossible to tell the two apart, and the New Zealanders having turned completely back to their Maori roots. Then again, we might not even know what the true native form of New Zealanders is, however, since the Maoris came there in the 1,000 years ago, which isn't long enough. I think that by using magic, you can delay the effect of magic soil. Yes, I believe that since after patch 2.0, when God removed all magic from the world and infused them all into his one son with Jesus, so that with his new patch the only real magic is through Jesus. I think that if you are religious, you can offset the corrupting effects of magic soil. For example, if you go to new continent, to new land, and you keep hold of this the religion you have, and you keep reinvoking that spirit, you keep doing the ritual for generation after generation, you can offset the corrupting effect. You can keep your ways, but only through magic can you combat magic, right? This is what I am saying. So there is no coincidence that when America turned majority atheist, that we saw them revert more to this savage nature. Perhaps it is a cabal of great elite Sioux and Cherokee warriors who own all the banks and all the media, who have pushed atheism on the great masses of America in order to truly win the demographic battle of the US in the long term. Food for thought.